Have you ever started something, whether it was a novel, a passion project, or a painting, and then spent hours and hours tirelessly working on it to make sure that every single detail is perfect? When I look back at my life, I realize that I've abandoned more projects than I've actually finished. I have a folder in my computer full of these partially written short stories and half-baked novels. I even have a whole library of video games where I've never even started or abandoned halfway through. So a few years back, before my son became a teenager and wanted to go off and do his own thing, he came to me wanting to spend more time with me playing games. So back then, we borrowed a copy of Super Mario Odyssey on the Nintendo Switch, and we were more than ready to fire up the game and play. Now, unlike some previous Super Mario games, like Super Mario Galaxy or Super Mario 64, Super Mario Odyssey could actually be played by two players at the same time. This is because in this particular game, Mario's hat basically comes alive through some mysterious video game magic. And yes, you guessed it, the second player gets to play as Mario's hat. Additionally, this also meant that you could explore this new 3D Mario world as two players without having to take turns. So of course, being the seasoned video game veteran that I was, I encouraged my son, you should play as Mario. I can play as the hat, as Cappy the hat. However, for some unknown reason or another, he really wanted to play the hat, and so I was stuck with the role of playing Mario. Now here's where things get interesting, and where I came to my first realization, which is that perfection is overrated. You see, this realization hit me because of the different styles of play that me and my son had. Where I'm more the type to play through a level, completing it, unlocking all the secrets until I get to about 100% on the level, my son thought differently about playing video games. So once we've gotten enough stars to basically progress to the next level, he would constantly ask me, "When are we going to the next level, Dad? Are you done yet? Are we done yet? Are we there yet?" At first, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the suggestion. What? Move on? We've only completed like about 70% of this level. There's still 30% left. We still have all these secrets we have to unlock. However, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was a bit of wisdom in what he was saying. When I look back at my life and even my video game history, I would start something, get really into it, spend so much time and energy on it, wanting to perfect and complete every single thing, and then later just be drained out or lose interest and just abandon it altogether. I could even list several games that off of the top of my head I got super into, really, really into. Spent hours and hours on it, but then later abandoned and never finished. There was Skyrim, Far Cry 5, Borderlands, Neverwinter Nights, and a whole lot of Japanese RPGs. And so when I look back at this time I spent with my son playing Super Mario Odyssey, even though we never completed the game to 100%, we didn't unlock all the secrets, at least we could say that we actually finished the game. Compare this to all the other games I've mentioned, wherein I may have gotten super into it, I may have done a lot of things within the game, but I can never claim that I finished the game. And I realized that this attitude played into my writing as well. I wanted to make sure that every little piece of my story was perfect. No words out of place, no sentence that wasn't there without that polished pizzazz or splendor. I was such a perfectionist with my stories that I ended up abandoning them altogether because I felt that I wasn't good enough to finish them. And so playing with my son reminded me of some of the things I'd learned from Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. The first was that perfectionism stops people from completing their work, yes, but even worse, it often stops people from beginning their work. Perfectionists often decide in advance that the end product is never gonna be satisfactory, so they don't even bother trying to create in the first place. So because of this time I spent with my son, I realized that I didn't have to complete every single side quest in the game to finish the story or to finish the game. I could just move on and finish the main story. Even Stephen Pressfield described this state perfectly in his book, The War of Art. He said, The danger is greatest when the finish line is in sight. At this point, resistance knows we're about to beat it. It hits the panic button. It marshals one last assault and slams us with everything it's got. So this idea applies not just to Super Mario, but with other games I played wherein I progressed really far enough to almost finish it, but then just stop and just abandoned it altogether. Because in a world filled with many distractions and shiny objects, it becomes so easy to forgo finishing and accomplishing something. And so with that, my son and I decided to really play through to the end of Super Mario Odyssey. And as for me, I decided to apply the same principle to several other games that I've played through and progressed far enough but never actually finished. And while I did that, I decided to do the same thing with my writing. In fact, there's this popular quote from Leonardo da Vinci that says that art is never finished, only abandoned. In a sense, when you think about the statement, it suggests that you will really never be able to write that perfect novel, create that perfect painting, write that perfect symphony. And that's okay. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Finished, not perfect. That should be the goal. In her book, Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert also says, it's far more honorable to stay in a game, even if you're objectively failing at the game, than to excuse yourself from participation because of your delicate sensibilities. But in order to stay in the game, you must let go of your fantasy of perfection. So throughout the years, much of my art has never really been finished, only abandoned, but abandoned in a terrible way. It's been a while since I've put words to the page in a way that made me feel alive. It's been a while since I've chased after the rush and the challenge of trying to solve every single puzzle piece of this intricate thing called a story. So if I wanted to finish anything, I'd have to take a page from my son's playbook. I'd have to stop fussing over the details of perfection. I'd have to stop getting myself distracted and focus on the main goal. The goal in Super Mario is to save Princess Peach from Bowser. The goal in Fallout 4 is to rescue my kidnapped son. The goal isn't to explore the entire Mushroom Kingdom. Exploring the world should come second to saving the princess. In the same way, the goal of every piece of art, of every story untold, should be to share it with others, not just to keep it inside here and keep it within ourselves and locked in. And so in the end, I'm extremely grateful to my son for pushing us to finish Super Mario Odyssey. Truth be told, actually finishing the game and watching those end credits roll actually gave me a great sense of accomplishment. And now all that's left is to translate that video game wisdom into the real world. And so I hope that this has helped you somehow overcome that sense of perfectionism that you may have been having. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put your work out there. Just do the thing. And with that, if you like this content, if you want to see more of it, make sure to like and subscribe.